The trending conversation about Pastor Paul Enenche and Pastor Abel Damina is indeed worth talking about right now for me, so please pay attention. If you're meeting me for the first time, my name is George. It's not the first time I'm handling such conversations, so we have to really pay attention to facts. And like we know here as a rural community, as fact over sentiment. So whatever it is I say, or whatever it is I point out in this conversation, make sure you take notes and also be connecting dots as I talk about it. Why is this even important to discuss? Looking at the relationship of two people, because we are very much familiar with the hero worship that happens in the African context, and how pastors normally talk about each other and their impartations and all that. I think it's important we also get to talk about this, because it seems to be that Pastor Abel Damina is not being featured in the story of Dr. Paul Enenche when it comes to his personality and growth in ministry.
Beloved brothers and sisters, your source can affect your size. No matter how hard an antelope tries, it can't give birth to an elephant.
Before I get on to this particular conversation, I want to make this very clear that I have no doubt in me that Dr. Paul Enenche is in a way a prodigy of Pastor Abel Damina, and I have a reason for saying that. So if you are patient enough as well, probably you'll get to realize that towards the end of this video. But before we get on, let's have our good, interesting intro for those who are just passerbys. Just to give you a summary of what you are looking at, Dr. Paul Enenche himself has not really publicly spoken about the person of Abel Damina, at least in a positive light, like many videos have been circulating, insinuating that he has been talking about the person of Pastor Abel Damina. Don't worry, I'll play the videos here for you to listen. And also, Pastor Abel Damina has spoken not just once, not just twice, not even thrice about the person of Dr. Paul Enenche. And people might say, oh, wait a minute, why is he talking about Dr. Paul Enenche? Because, come on, he's clearly not talking about him. Probably I'll take you guys back to some years before, so you get to understand why I think their relationship is a bit of a rift. Listen, it says on May 28, 1996, in a small town of Jos, Nigeria, a young doctor was at a crossroads in his life. He could relocate to London to be with his beautiful wife, also a doctor. He could visit a prestigious university abroad to step up his medical qualification, or if he wanted to stay in Nigeria, he had two attractive medical appointments open. However, he was restless and decided to take some time to seek God's face to lead him from the crossroads. He journeyed to a mountain on the outskirts of Jos to be with God. At the end of 3 days of little water and no food, he came down from the mountain with a clear vision of exactly what he was going to do with his life. He has been asked to put aside his medical certificate, go to the city of Abuja, the capital of Nigeria, and start a gospel outreach that will be characterized by a heavy presence of God to heal, save, and deliver people and restore human destiny and dignity. When he got home, his young wife, Dr. Mrs. Becky Enenche, who has been very supportive of his ministry, had been fasting and praying for her husband while nursing their infant child. The Spirit of God told her exactly what he had told her husband, thus confirming the call. While I was reading this as well, the video I was showing you on your screen is a video of Dr. Becky herself saying the exact same thing I am reading here. The only difference is that she didn't mention the exact date, but she said it was May 1996.
19 years ago, in May, my husband came back home. We were both practicing medicine in Jos.
What do you notice in this particular biography? I believe most of you must have seen the video of Pastor Abel Damina, but for the benefit of those who are here for the first time, listen to Abel Damina talk about how in a time he gave direction to the person of Dr. Paul Enenche, which is the reason why Dunamis itself was born. Listen.
When I interpret it, in other words, every time I am speaking in tongues,
I have a potential to prophesy. I also have a potential to bless others. I have potentials to carry information that can give people direction or edification. I have potential to carry information that can give people edification or direction. Look at me. Years ago, many years ago, Pastor Paul Enenche, and I know so many of you know him, okay? Used to be a member of our church. He wanted to go to London to go and read medical science master's degree with his wife. But they didn't have the money and they didn't have the contact. So they came to Uyo with their letters of admission. I still have copies of the letter. And they said to me, we know you are connected in London. We have an admission. We want to go to London to read medicine, so that when we come back, masters, we can start doing rural medical outreach. So please, if you can talk to your contacts to help, even if they can give us scholarship or sponsor us. So I told them, okay, sleep in the guest room. I'm going to pray about it tonight. So I got on my knees and the Lord spoke to me clearly. So I came to them in the guest room and I said, the Lord just spoke to me. You're not going to London for medical missions. You're not going to read medicine masters. The Lord told me it's time for you to start the church. You start the church and the church will grow, and from the church you will build medical teams that will go for medical outreach. And then he said to me, church where? I said, I hear Abuja. I gave him information. I gave him direction. He said, but I don't have anybody in Abuja. I said to him, when you get back to Jos, get on a bus, go to Abuja. And as you arrive Abuja, go on evangelism. And that was it. The Dunamis Church was born because I gave him direction. He could have gone to London and be reading medicine and missed that direction. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Yeah, he could have gone to London and read medicine and maybe lose direction. But I gave him direction by the Spirit of God. And today that direction is a blessing in his life. Am I teaching here? Yeah. So when we give people words of prophecy, it contains information that will bring direction, that will fix the course of their entire life. That's why you don't despise it. That's why you don't neglect it. That's why you stir up yourself. You stir up yourself. Am I teaching good here? You stir up yourself. You interpret tongues. And you.
Now, one thing you notice here correlating, number one, is that he was at a crossroads. And that also tallies perfectly with what the person of Pastor Abel Damina just said, because he had a plan, according to him, and he has evidence of that particular letter of admission or something. He had a plan. He went to him with a plan, with a decision that I'm going to do this, and stayed in their guest house. Now, he didn't go alone. He went with his own wife. Let's say we are believing Pastor Abel Damina, because for him to be speaking like this publicly about this, it is true. And George believes him. So they went together and they stayed in his guest house over there at Uyo. And it's in the process of that he now gave him more like a word of knowledge or prophecy. And then in the process, of course, right here, he believes that him giving them that particular instruction, or would I say word of knowledge, prophecy, however you want to put it, is a reason why Dunamis itself was born. Remember, they went there with a plan of what they want to do. This correlates with his biography right here, that at the same time, he was in a crossroad. Now, I use the word at the same time here because there's a bit of a conflicting issue here. There's a video circulating now that Pastor Abel Damina said categorically that he ordained him as a pastor in February 1996.
He was ordained on the same day, 1996, 97, 98.
1996 February.
Yes, he was ordained on the same day with somebody Odola.
Paul Odola.
And then Enenche.
Yes, him, Paul Odola, and Paul Enenche were ordained the same day right there.
The same Enenche.
Same service.
So why will he now say he doesn't know you?
Well, time will tell.
Now, this right here, according to their biography, Dr. Paul Enenche is said to have happened in May the same year. So the question right now is, Abel Damina would have to answer if he ever decides to speak about this again, because he said in a video here,
I don't need anything from Dr. Paul. God has already blessed me. But it's for the records. People are asking questions, and I have to answer those questions. There are even people in church that were there when he was ordained. There are many people. You can't lie when there are many witnesses. Pastor Ada was there, Dr. Okonkwo was there, and a number of them. They were physically, and they are in the building right now. They were there when the ordination. There are even members of his church in Uyo here who were members of this church, who were there when he was ordained. I mean, the records are all over the place. I can go on and on. I have a lot of evidence, so I don't want to bring out pictures. I don't want to bring out stuff because I don't want to embarrass him. I just want to keep, things within where we can all be happy, okay? So I don't need anything from him.
But it's not necessary so that there will be peace. And I respect him for that particular opinion. But of course, as well, my dear friends, you have to know this. Here is facts over sentiment. Abel Damina will also probably have to, if he has to talk about this again, say when was the exact time that they came to his house, stayed over in his guest house where he got this particular revelation. Because if Abel Damina is replaced for the mountain, then of course you know what I'm talking about at this point. Because me looking at his entire biography and digging deep as well to see if I could find him ever mentioning the person of Pastor Abel Damina ever, I found none. And that would be something very intentional, because if both of them went to Pastor Abel Damina, both of them can also agree not to even talk about him or his influence in their life ever. We are getting somewhere with this because there's a reason why I'm talking about this. And if you are thinking in a figment of your imagination that I'm here trying to hold a brief for Pastor Abel Damina, you are already wrong on arrival. Relax, we have a long way to go. So we have made one correlation. Now, one thing is also important to realize here. Dr. Paul Enenche has spoken severally in different occasions, even him being invited to Dunamis, that while he was growing up or while he was in school, he was a member of a deeper life fellowship. So the question right now is, at what time did he get in contact with Pastor Abel Damina to the point of being part of his church, like Pastor Abel Damina said, and to the point of him being ordained as a pastor? Because think about this for a moment. That Pastor Paul Enenche is a pastor today. How did he get the title pastor? Let's think about that for a moment. No one just happens. I guess so. So anyone to be anything would have been ordained by someone. Or do people just wake up and then they become whatever? That is why you see when it comes to the person of TB Joshua, while he was even living, people always ask, who ordained him? Where did he grow from? So when it comes to the Pentecostal Protestant cycle, there has to be your genealogy somewhere, coming from somewhere. You will not find it anywhere, even in the biography of the person of Dr. Paul Enenche, where he says that at this point was when he became a pastor, or at this point was when he was ordained. Why is there no information on that? You have to think very carefully. Now it begins to make sense. Now, Dr. Paul Enenche is speaking about relevant impartation. Note the word relevant impartations. One time was talking about the person of Bishop David Oyedepo. And while he was speaking about his person, he said even before he met him, he had seen him in a dream where Bishop David Oyedepo poured oil on his head. That, of course, shouldn't mean that he was ordained in his dream.
When God gives you a vision and he gives you direction and then opens you up to revelations, he brings you into associations that will give you the relevant impartation. That takes you to your destination. That is my story. Close to 30 years ago, I came into contact with God's servant through messages, through tapes, and what I heard stirred my spirit. The first message I think I heard was unveiling the realities of the supernatural realms. And my heart was stirred. Is there such a man? Where is he? And I continued listening to the message until one day I saw in the dream of the night, he poured oil on my head. I had never met him. We had never seen. I didn't even know how he looked like, but he anointed me in the dream. And then after getting newly married over 27 years ago, we heard that he was coming into town in the city of Jos where we were. And we traced him to the church then, the Living Faith Church, and then graciously were able to have an encounter with him. And I shared with him what I saw in the dream and how I had listened to several tapes, messages that changed and impacted my life. And he did it, and he said, okay, he's going to do that practically. So he poured the oil practically in the physical, and then that was the beginning of very, very great, unprecedented, unimaginable impact. Shortly after that, God sent us to the city of Abuja to start ministry. And while we're trying to just lay the foundation, he came to town.
So if you look at this, he sees his relevant impartation coming from the person of Bishop David Oyedepo. Just for me to make a connection right here as well, Pastor Abel Damina said in a recent interview that even him moving to Abuja, his first meeting, that he actually preached for him.
Pastor Tony Okoro said, one that you were the one. Whereas then Dr. Paul Enenche would have wanted to join Power City. He said, no, go and start your own work. And that you were the first to preach for him. Is that correct?
Very true. Very true. In Abuja. Very true. We used a small hall in Sheraton Hotel then that could take about 80 people. Because that's what they could afford. No, Sheraton.
Sheraton, okay.
That was the first time. Sheraton was where I preached. And I remember that service, I invited Bishop John Praise and Bishop Jonas Katung to come with me to that service. And they were in that service when I preached for him in that service.
And he mentions witnesses so that it becomes very clear that he knows what he's talking about. And would you think in a figment of your imagination that Pastor Abel Damina would be making these kind of things up? I guess not. I know why I'm saying this. So also here in his biography here, let me go on because I intentionally left out that part. When he talked about Sheraton Hotel, so in May, they got this revelation after going to the mountain. And just think about it as well for a moment. He went to the mountain and the wife as well was praying back home, and they both have the same revelation. And both of them also went to the person of Damina. It is not possible that after they had this particular revelation according to their own story that they have presented, that they still went to Abel Damina saying that they want to go to London and they are looking for contact. Come on, Global Baba should be able to have global contacts. I believe so. But what happened? I am thinking here that the time that they went to the person of Pastor Abel Damina must have been, if what they actually said happened at the mountain happened, must have been before that particular going to the mountain to go and pray and all that. So let me see it this way. They went to Uyo, if I'm getting it correctly, they went to Uyo to see Pastor Abel Damina, intending or being in the crossroad of wanting to Japa. But since Abel Damina gave them a word against Japa that they should go to Abuja, they went back to Jos. Since they were based in Jos practicing as well, they went back to Jos, and then he also decided to go and pray, just to get confirmation. And then him going to go and pray at the mountain and the wife also praying back home, they came back as well, and it is the same confirmation is what Pastor Abel Damina said is the same confirmation that they got from their own prayer and fasting. Does it make sense? Because it cannot be after their prayer and fasting that they went to Pastor Abel Damina. And Pastor Abel Damina was not lying when he said that they actually came to his house. Does it make sense? Because if they went after their own prayer, that means their prayer and fasting and confirmation is null and void, because they did not even believe that they were having a revelation from God. So whatever it is that happened with their meeting with Abel Damina must have been before their prayer and confirmation from God. So of course, that's also a lesson for you to learn. Someone might give you a word of prophecy and all of that. Go. You have access to God. Seek him in prayer. He's going to confirm things for you as well. So if Abel Damina would be right to say that, okay, he gave them direction in his own path, so probably he doesn't know about them going to the mountain. But I hope Abel Damina is not the one being replaced as the mountain here in this conversation, because this biography would have to be edited. But again, I'm looking at facts here. So here, of course, it says here in November 1996, so months after they got the revelation, 6 months after the call, it now looks as if, okay, at this point was when they got the call for them to go into ministry, I would say, because Pastor Abel Damina said that it's time for him to start his own church when he gave him that particular word to go to Abuja. So the question right now is, if he was ordained in February 1996 as a pastor, where was he pastoring under? Where was he actively serving? Think about it for a moment. Now, Some of you will also get to connect the person of Pastor Joshua. Some of you might also now start talking about Joshua Telena also being in Jos, who actually served Abel Damina himself and doesn't ever get to deny him. Even during COVID as well, he was having some live sessions with him and all that. So Joshua Telena himself served under Pastor Abel Damina. Joshua Telena himself was in Jos. Was Pastor Paul Enenche serving under Joshua Telena? That's the question, of course, for you to think for a moment. Yes, of course. But we have some things to discuss. Pastor Paul Enenche and his wife, Dr. Becky Enenche, left every plan they had made for their lives and moved to Abuja. Like Abraham, they knew no one there, but obeying the Lord was paramount to them. Dunamis International Gospel Center was established in November 10, 1996. The first Sunday service was held in Abuja Center for Arts and Culture, first floor, Area 10. Church service was held there for 2 weeks before the church moved to Abuja Sheraton Hotel and Towers, where worship took place for 6 months. The church moved to her present site in June 1997, less than a year after the ministry had started. Now you see the correlation with what Pastor Abel Damina said?
Sheraton,
okay.
That was the first time. Sheraton.
So Abel Damina may not even know that, okay, while they went and they were doing their outreach, they were having church services, probably at this particular place here at Abuja Art and Culture Center. But he talked about Sheraton Hotel specifically. And this place was where they had their longest, more like that pre-starting time, before they had that permanent site. It was at this time at Sheraton Hotel that Pastor Abel Damina believes that he was the first to have preached for him over there at Abuja, officially, where he brought some guest ministers along with him. Does this make sense? So would you say Abel Damina was lying at this point? Probably not. But again, this is his biography, not the biography of Pastor Abel Damina. But you have to connect dots right here. I have a question. Did Dr. Paul Enenche ever say he doesn't know the person of Pastor Abel Damina? I watched the videos. I didn't see him even mention the person of Pastor Abel Damina. But of course, we know how pastors speak. When they don't get to mention names, you know exactly what they're talking about. I'm going to play the videos as well to you so you get to understand exactly what is warranting this notion from Abel Damina's camp that he says he doesn't know him. Please listen.